COVID-19 is the transport sector. And so we've got a couple of questions now that we want to pose to the man at the helm of that ministry. Joining us now live from his office is the CS Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development and Public Works, CS James Macharia. Thank you for speaking with us on Newsnight, CS.
Thank you, Wahiga. Appreciate it.
Indeed, 2 weeks ago, or rather 2 days ago, you stated that any matatu operator not observing government directives will have their SACCO licenses suspended and their vehicles impounded. Now, this is not the first time we have had you giving such an order. How many have complied? Do you have those numbers?
You recall after we gave the initial order, which was like 2 weeks ago, on Sunday, we reissued those orders and indicated that, we have no patience in terms of people who will not be complying. And what we said was the police, the traffic police, will be deployed fully. And we started monitoring actually a number of those vehicles and a number of those SACCOs. And if it is confirmed that indeed some of them are not complying, we shall be taking action in the next 24 hours.
So have you taken action yet on any SACCO operators? Have any been, for example, deregistered at this time?
Well, the good thing is that vast majority have actually complied. If you recall, we talked about social distancing, which is critical. You have seen them actually buying sanitizers. You've seen some of them even having the masks. So it has been very much self-regulation. And that's why this action has not taken place.
Okay.
What now we are focusing on is to make sure they do not actually increase the fares as a result of reduction of passenger load.
And I'll be coming to that shortly. So for those who say that, for example, the matatu sector, the transport sector, is one of the weakest links in the fight against COVID-19 because matatu operators will only follow the rules when they are being watched. They'll do their own things when they are not. Passengers desperate to go home will do anything to get onto that matatu, even if it is packed. Is it not the weakest sector, CS?
Well, it was the weakest link before. But I think if you recall, on the 16th, we actually started a very, very major campaign. We went to the railway station where most of those matatus pick their passengers. We went with the Minister of Health officials, and now they understand the implications. The good thing is that they know they are doing it for their own benefit.
So when CS Kagwe says expect harsher measures in the future, could some of those measures be the banning of PSVs altogether, like we've seen in Uganda?
Well, it's not just one issue.
Okay.
I think when you take decisions, you take them on a wholesome basis, where we look at all the interventions, whether it is matatus, whether it is issues of the informal settlements. We don't look at one specific area. You take the entire picture and make sure that we actually take decisions which you have the end result which we desire.
You mentioned earlier the increase of fares, where matatu operators are taking advantage of the times that we live in to try and make a bit more money. If there are viewers watching this program this evening who know that the matatu operators on their route are not charging the right amount, what would you tell them to do? Because you say that's something you're working on.
Well, I think the first thing to say is to tell Kenyans, and to tell in particular matatu operators, we are all in this together. What you've told them, Wahiga, is that, look, if this pandemic cleared all of us, they'll have nobody to carry. They'll have zero passengers. And so we have told them to use a bit of reasoning, a bit of logic, and to make sure that whether it's going to take 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, we sail this together. At least they have kept their business intact over that period of time.
CS, let's move from the roads to aviation, the airline industry, and one that is firmly within your docket as well. There are those who ask, why did it take you 3 months from the start of announcements about COVID-19 in China to ban international flights into this country?
Well, Wahiga, we were among the very first countries to actually ban the flights. We actually took a decision where we said initially that all passengers from COVID-19 infected countries would not come to this country. And we were among the first to do so. Initially, before then, As you know, we had agreed with Kenya Airways, they'll stop flying to China. We had also agreed with China Southern Airline, but decisions later on came very quickly because as we reviewed the progression of the pandemic, we took a lot more very affirmative actions to make sure that we dealt with emerging challenges. That's why, like I said,
CS, allow me to interrupt you. There was a great outcry from Kenyans as early as late February, ban these flights. And you know the whole issue around even the whistleblower, etc. as well. If you had banned them earlier, wouldn't we be talking about fewer cases today?
Well, you see, we have had only about 6 weeks of this pandemic, but we took the decisions a right time because those decisions had to be taking the global picture because there's not an epidemic which relates to Kenya alone. It's an epidemic which is global. And that's why even after we took some decisions, some of the countries actually still continue flying to some of those hotspots long after Kenya had actually stopped doing so. And that's why, as you know, we had some challenges in getting some of our people from those countries. Even as we are talking today, we are actually discussing how to evacuate some of our students in Latin America, who are, in the shipping industry, because we took that decision earlier than most of the other airlines.
Okay, but some would argue that the countries that have allowed flights to continue have better testing of citizens that were able to do it earlier. But you still haven't answered my question, which is, if we banned the flights earlier, is it possible we would have fewer numbers today?
You see, Wahiga, we have to differentiate one thing.
Yes, because most of the most of the cases have been imports. Go ahead.
We banned not flights, we banned passengers. That's what you understand, because airplanes on their own do not bring coronavirus. It is what we did in terms of banning the passengers from those countries, which we did very early in the game.
Some Kenyans feel it wasn't very early. They feel it was very late. What would you say to them this evening?
Globally, we have taken a stock as to who did what when, and we are among the first to act. Okay,
you want to leave it at that?
Yes.
So apart from Latin America, and you've introduced an interesting component, is there any chance that you could evacuate some of the students still in China, for example, or in Europe? Or is Latin America for now the priority?
No, the Latin America, we had actually some companies where they're working for offering to do the actual evacuation of those students. You see, that's where now corporate social responsibility comes in. These students with whom we are discussing, they had been sent into this shipping sector. But now, after the pandemic, getting back was a problem. So the company employing them actually has offered to pay for their return to Kenya. These are the kind of interventions we like to encourage the corporate sector to do, because it's not just about making profits when the going is good. It's about sharing responsibility when you need to do so.
What does the future of Kenya Airways look like? Bearing in mind, we've already had talk about them looking for a bailout to survive the turbulent months that lie ahead. CS.
But here, the bigger fundamental question is, what's the future of the aviation sector globally? You know, some of the biggest airlines went public. We had British Airways saying 80% of their fleet is grounded. You had Virgin Atlantic asking the British government to step in and bail them out because they had packed 75% of their aircraft. So the future of the aviation sector is at big risk. And we just hope this problem will not be sustained or is not persist for too long. Otherwise,
yes,
the future for the sector is very bleak.
You're right, but of course some of these airlines are linked with economies that have stimulus packages that had, sort of money saved up that could, bail out companies like that. Is that a discussion your ministry or the task force that you sit in is having as you project forward for a company like Kenya Airways? Is that a discussion you've been having?
I'd like to confirm this, that even before the pandemic, we actually had provided support to Kenya Airways, which was made public. And this was before the pandemic, because we are doing so for one reason. Kenya Airways is a strategic asset of this country, in which our country has got a strategic interest, and for which, is our national flag carrier. We have to support Kenya Airways, because it's not just transportation. We have tourism, we have floriculture, and we have many other areas of the sector in our economy which depends on national carrier. So we must go beyond the profits and look at what Kenya Airways is bringing to our country.
Okay, it sounds like there are plans to support Kenya Airways even as the nation deals with COVID-19. Nevertheless, my final question to you would be this. You hold what many would call the largest development budget in all ministries, because when you're looking at the budgets of transport, infrastructure, housing, urban development, and public works, how much have you surrendered, CS Macharia, to the national government for in terms of what you'd have had for the remainder of the financial year 2019-2020 to fight COVID-19? How much have you surrendered?
Well, those numbers are being worked out, not just for my ministry, but across the entire government. And now it's a time of prioritizing and making sure that we leave enough resources to tackle this pandemic. Other things will follow, but that mandate is being handled by the National Treasury. What you have to do is to make sure we support National Treasury to make sure that we sail through this storm.
Okay, so just to clarify that, when we did hear CS Yatani saying a lot of development projects will be put on hold, we can imagine then that includes development projects under your dockets. They'll be put on hold as budgets are looked at afresh.
Clearly, there will be a downturn in the economy. As you know, as of tomorrow, we don't have Madaraka Express coming from Mombasa to Nairobi and vice versa. But also the imports have come down. That's why we all have to tighten our belts. That's why we had reached about 14 trains per day for cargo. Now we are going about 6 or 7. So economy is hurting, but not just one sector, but across all sectors. That's why in deciding what we shall do for the future, we have to decide which budgets we are going to reveal for the sake of our future, government, spending and economic development.
CS Macharia, thank you so much for speaking with us. He is the Minister, Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development and Public Works. Obviously, all the sort of dockets within his ministry taking a beating because of COVID-19, and he's just been live with us here on NEWSNIGHT to talk a little bit about the challenges of the disruption of COVID-19 on the transport sector and many others which affects many Kenyans at this time.